The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're logging in from. That'll sound just about right. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to officially start in about a minute and a half or so. Love to kick things off the way we normally do, and you guys letting me know where you're dialing in from today. Really excited about the participation we're getting, especially here in the US and the UK as it's a holiday week, and probably in other areas around the world too. I'm just not up to speed on everyone's holiday calendars, but I know there are at least two this week. But thanks everybody for joining us today and for registering. So we've got sunny Chicago with Paul, Vancouver. I see Olivia, you were the second one to message in today, so I'm sorry about that. Sheffield, UK, we've got another Chicago number 2, Andrew says. So if you don't mind keeping those rolling in, I am in sunny Cleveland as well. And Jim is it sunny down in Cincinnati? I assume so.
I'm in sunny and warm Cincinnati. Yes, very nice.
And Keith Parsons, how's the weather in Salt Lake?
Wonderful. Sunny, bright, blue skies. That's why I moved here. I like not having clouds. I lived in Washington before, so I know what clouds are like.
Yeah, right on. So it sounds like we're getting similar weather patterns all over the U.S. We've got Paul logging in from southeastern PA, which is actually where I'm from, Paul, Delaware County, actually. And then we've got Nashville, Jason. Keep those coming through. Love seeing those. We're going to go ahead and get started here. I've got 1 minute after 11. So we've got a great topic for you guys today, timely as usual. Is technology delivering on its promise to allow work from home? And we can go in a lot of different directions on this topic, and Keith Parsons is going to lead us through it.
I don't know. You're not working from home today, though, Don.
I know.
So you're trying to be the counterpoint to the message.
That's right.
Don's answer is no. It doesn't work.
There's still a use for these big enterprise wireless networks, and I'm living proof of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I suppose that's good.
Yeah. So I just got a couple of quick slides that I'll run through before I hand the controls over to Keith. We won't be doing any product discussions today, though I'll just do a short overview about 7Signal. So if you're interested in a product tour, go to go.7signal.com/tour, and we'll get you registered and set up for a product tour. We'll share a copy of today's slides and a recording of today's presentation. If you're chomping at the bit and want to share this presentation with anyone else, it's usually posted within an hour after the presentation on YouTube. So go ahead and check there if you can't wait for that email from us. But rest assured, everything will be posted up there. We've got some special offers, which I'm going to share with you all today, especially relevant to the remote workforce. And again, for those of you who are continuing your education and going after some certifications through CWNP, these presentations are certified through CWNP for towards your certification. So keep that in mind. Let us know if you need a copy of that certificate. Happy to share those. So two promotions that we talked about each week. We are giving away Mobileye. It's our product for monitoring the connectivity for your remote workers. You can go to go.7signal.com/50 for 50, and you can get access to 50 licenses of our Mobileye product. Again, we're not going to go into a demo or anything like that today, but I wanted you all to be aware. And then, of course, our customers, our Sapphire customers who do not have Mobileye, can go to go.7signal.com/1000 for 60. Certainly a nicer offer for our customer base. So just a little bit about 7Signal before we get going. The company was started in 2007 in Helsinki, Finland. They moved to the U.S. shortly thereafter, about 3 years after. And we've hit a lot of major milestones, and the biggest one being last year when we hit 1 billion data points that we monitor on a daily basis. So we're looking at a lot of different networks, a lot of different devices, monitoring a lot of KPIs, helping organizations manage their Wi-Fi. Over 200 customers, over 30 partners around the world. Product is homologated in over 40 countries around the world. It's important to note that we are GDPR compliant for our customers and prospects in the UK and EU. Not only does our technology stack stay relevant and up to date, but we also care about privacy as well. So in a nutshell, 7Signal is here to enable the wireless world. And how we're doing that is we're helping organizations find and fix Wi-Fi issues. Since 2007, we created a complete outside-in enterprise framework that's completely AP and device agnostic and modular. Our products are replete with reporting and analytics as you would expect. And what we're doing is we're looking for what we call the top 7 Wi-Fi problems. Everything that has to do with a problem in the world of Wi-Fi bubbles up to one of these 7 problems. And it's going to present itself differently to the end user. That may show as slow Wi-Fi or unable to connect. But rest assured, one of these issues that we're monitoring is the root cause of those issues. And that's what we're here to help our customers find. We're running active and passive tests on the network and on the endpoints for things like throughput, packet loss, latency, and jitter, delivering a MOS score, full spectrum analysis with packet capture. So real differentiation in the products that you see from us. And as the previous slide mentioned, fully patented. We've got 14 patents here in the US. So it's important to know the difference between legacy and outside in. Legacy is if you're not a 7Signal customer, you may have the vendor tools, which are great. The access points can tell you what's going on with the network and give visibility, but not like 7Signal. So we are here to complement your access points and other device tools, the application performance monitoring tools that are on those endpoints. So we give you visibility into that end user experience by living up in the rafters with the access points or down on those devices. Again, monitoring the network from the outside in, that last hop, giving our engineers exactly what they need to get to the root cause of issues, find them fast, unlike ever before. And since we can go back in time, our end users can see what was going on with that network at a given time on that device, and giving them the resources that they need. So my last slide here, we've got 2 products, Mobileye on the left-hand side, Sapphire Eye on the right. Mobileye is completely software as a service that lives on the endpoint. This is the product that we're giving away for the COVID pandemic to do our give back to the industry. So any Windows, Mac, Android device. Also on mini PCs now. So if you have non-traditional devices, robots, forklifts, other things that don't have a traditional operating system, we have customers who are using mini PCs. They're just a little USB stick that attaches to the equipment and uses that equipment to roam around the facility, and you're able to get visibility into co-channel interference, congestion, coverage, those sorts of things. On the right is Sapphire Eye. That is our perfect client or sensor that lives up in the rafters with the access points or down on a table, etc. That's our hardware-enabled or software-enabled sensor that we've really been a major keystone of the industry for a long, long time. So with that said, I'm going to hand the controls over to Jim Vajda and Keith, and we're going to talk through today's topic. Really excited to get going. So Jim is going to moderate this portion of the presentation. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Don. And while Keith's taking over, I'll just introduce myself real quick. So Jim Vajda here, Director of Global Wi-Fi Solutions at 7Signal. Mostly do sales engineering, and I'm a CWNE with experience in doing Wi-Fi design in a lot of different verticals. So always good to have Keith here. Keith, say hello. Are you ready to go?
Hello, and
All
ready
right.
to go. So I thought we'd do this a little more interactive between the 2 of us here and talk about it. And just to start out, we've got this, is technology doing what it's supposed to do? We're in the middle of this COVID crisis here in actually just about everywhere in the world is in some form of lockdown. And I'm sitting in my home office, so is Jim. Poor Don, he had to go into the office today. But Don, I didn't see you with your mask on, so. you know,
I am in violation of some policy, I'm sure.
yeah, something there. So anyway, let's just get started and talk through this. Here's just a little highlight about me. I do Wi-Fi. I collect certifications. I know it's kind of a weird hobby. My wife asked what my hobby was. I told her, and she goes, "No, that's a disease. You just can't stop." So anyway, I like collecting certifications and basically learning and trying new things. I have a website, WNPros.com. You can go there and have lots and lots of free information. I truly believe information is like manure. If you spread it around, it'll help things to grow. If you hang on to it, you just stink. So let's talk about mobility. Years ago, long time ago, we used to not have iPhones. We had phones, and we've had phones for decades. But what we didn't have was data with us all the time. I'm old, and I easily remember having a pager on my belt, and if my wife or coworkers or anyone needed me, they would page me. I would pull off the road, pull into a 7-Eleven, and go to a payphone to call in. That gave me mobility. I could move around anywhere I want and feel that I was in touch. Now, some people thought of pagers more as a leash that someone was holding on to, that you couldn't be free. But that's a different attitude to say, do I want to have the ability to still do my work no matter where I am? Well, today, in the middle of this COVID situation, we don't really travel that much outside of our houses, but there's so many places that we actually do things. Where we do our work isn't where it used to be. It used to be at our desk. And I think this current situation has done actually a service, and that we've realized everyone can work from just about anywhere. So let's think through where you work. So how many of you, and I could do this in a poll, but just think through these. How many of you have done work in any one of these places? Your bedroom, your kitchen, a coffee shop, a cruise ship. I did some of my best work a couple years ago, produced a great report, did exactly what I wanted it to do, and I did all of the work, including all of the research, all of the writing in time, all on a cruise ship. We had some sea days where you're just stuck on the boat, driving from island to island. My wife enjoyed the sun and the pool, and I produced an entire project. So you don't have to physically be anywhere. In fact, that project was mostly done on an iPad with a keyboard, and you can get a lot done. A couple of pieces, I had to bring my laptop into the restaurant on the cruise ship, or airports or airplanes. Now, I'm one that's, I like reading books, and I really enjoy reading books on an airplane because, you know, what else you got to do? You're just sitting, you're stuck in this little metal tube, 30,000 feet. Since this COVID thing, I used to read 1 to 2 books a week for my entire adult life. Now that you're stuck home, amazingly, I read maybe 1 a month. It's really sad. I like working in different places. So some people have worked in a taxi, like physically in the back of a taxi. I've been with someone and they finished a sale, they made a call, they did whatever it was. So today we need to be as mobile as possible, and that's where we are. Jim, where of all the places that I listed on the screen, how many of these have you worked in?
I think all of them. You know, I've done webinars like this from Airbnbs. I've done customer calls from airports, and I've done internal calls, you know, from 40,000 feet on an airplane. Just listening, not actually participating with voice. But yeah, just about all of this stuff, you know, I've done, and even the back of an Uber before. Absolutely, been on calls and getting work done there as well. So mobility is really key, and that's all before all this started happening.
Yeah, and so I think this transition's been going on for a long time. So let's go through a little Wayback Machine here, and I'm going to look at hopefully this video will play through. Okay. Thanks for indulging me in the little video of the history. The sad part is this was made in 2014, 6 years ago. And what are we doing today that's even since then? Most of the time, we can do a lot of our work with just the small little phone, or what they call them if you get a big one. I'm a small one myself.
Oh,
I used to carry the big one, tablet.
a phablet.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was one way, but we've now moved on, and everything we used to have on that desk is now coalesced down to something really small that we can use. So I know this session is supposed to be on working from home, but if we can work from anywhere, we can also work from home. Now, of all those things that were just shown in that video, we now have them all available to us on our laptop or maybe just on an iPad itself. I'm sure, Jim, you have a little backpack that has just about everything you need to take with you when you leave to go on a trip. Your entire work world is in that.
It hasn't been out of the office for a while, but I can fit a couple nice clothes in there and my laptop, and I'm good.
I went on a little trip last weekend to see my wife's family up in Idaho, and I packed my backpack. It was so enjoyable.
Nice.
That I went, oh yes, I remember I have everything I need in this one little backpack. So we used to, I love these. There's a whole series of these. You go looking at them, the evolution, and from this one's just highlighting the shape of what we look like in our posture. Now we're back, all the way crunched down. And some of us do sit that way. Personally, I like sitting up at a desk a little more. So let's talk about, is working from home here to stay? This picture makes it look very comfortable. The wife is sitting working. There's a nice fire going. Both of them are doing their jobs inside their house. Obviously, we're not showing this with children stuck home trying to homeschool at the same time.
That's right. Yeah, this door back here is locked, so my kids can't surprise us on the webinar.
Like that one where the little girl comes in and the nanny comes to take her out again. Yeah, kind of famous work. So working from home has, well, obviously lots of advantages and disadvantages. So advantages, you can, I've been working from home work from home or from a hotel room or from the back of an Uber. I've been a mobile worker for at least a decade, probably more than that. And so the things I like about it is that you have this flexible schedule. Now, you could have had a flexible schedule even if you had an office. It's all how you get your work done. But you can make your environment yours. You can put the books on the shelf that you want. You can organize it the way you want. There isn't any office police coming around going, you can only have things. I did a job for a company, and in their corporate headquarters, they had a rule that you could only put things on the shelves that were sold or in the company store. So if you wanted to buy company little trinkets, those are the only things you could have out. Yeah. You can wear whatever you want. No one knows whether or not I have pants on right now. I do, but you wouldn't have to know that. It's actually easier to make calls. Now, children at home aside, if they were at school, it's easier to make calls because there's no one else there. It can be quiet. You don't have to find that cozy space. I was sitting in on a Bixby conference a little while ago, and someone was giving a presentation on how to mask noise in an office. And I'm like, mask? I didn't understand. And it was very high tech, so I wanted to go attend the session. And in the session, they put speakers about every 6 to 10 feet in the ceiling, all over. And then they found if they push out a sound that's the same sound in the vocal range of people talking, then it's not that you can't hear the other. I mean, it doesn't mask any sound. What it does is it cuts it out so you can't hear what the other person is saying. You hear wah, 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 but you don't know the words. And they've had studies proving that, yes, because you can hear that they just talked about his cousin Freddie who did this other thing, it's distracting for the mind. If you just hear wah, 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 it's not distracting. So they have an entire business just on cutting down on that open office problem. No commute. Love the fact that no commute. Commute is you walk downstairs, you walk into the bedroom, you walk wherever you need to go. It allows you to save a lot of money because of the no commute and all those things, and you get to spend more time with your family. So it's a nice thing, and we're all kind of stuck in it right now. But I think we're getting used to it. Now the disadvantages are still there. You still have to stick to a routine. I've found my routine of reading books on a plane is disconcerting to me. I don't like missing that kind of a routine. I probably should do it anyway. Just sit on a couch and read and pretend I'm on a plane. When you miss all the advantages of being at the office with someone. Don's sitting at the office today. Don, what was the reason you went into the office rather than work from home today?
We sent out a communication here internally about the office opening back up. So we've got the hand sanitizer and the masks all here at HQ. So I bid on that note.
Did you need to go in there for anything?
No, not necessarily. We've got a great little office at home. Been really productive out of there recently.
And so on the list of disadvantages, I put power naps. For me, they're not a power nap. They're like full on sleep. You don't get to do that very often at the office, but you can do it at home, and yet it's not as effective. The other is from a boss's standpoint. Do you trust that your employees are still doing their job even if you can't watch them? Now, why did you hire them in the first place if that was the case? But as an employer, you're like, are they really getting their job done? Now, a lot of us in the high tech and IT industry have worked in this kind of remote office for a long time. So I think we're pretty used to that, and you get hired, and your metrics of how you get judged are a little more lenient when it comes to that kind of remote work. So one of the taglines in this webinar, we're going to talk about what kind of technology do you need. So do you have today all the technology that you need? One, you're sitting watching me, which means you have internet access, you have a computer, but is that all you need? For each of us, and this changes depending on what our job is, what's the optimum amount of technology that you need to have in your home? Now, in the past, it was I just could work away with a laptop. Well, I realized that my laptop's sitting here and it works fine, but I have a really big screen and now I'm more efficient. So in addition to the laptop that I might have taken home, it was nice to have an extra screen as well. You might have a larger keyboard. I like using a keyboard rather than a keyboard on the computer. You have other things that you might need to have. Now, and since this is a 7-signal webinar, one of the main things is I need to have really good Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is critical, not because that it's Wi-Fi itself, it's that it gives us access to the internet, which has all of the other features that we need on the other side. So in your office, you may or may not have had that kind of situation. Personally, I was in that for I moved out here. I live out in a place called Elk Ridge, Utah, up in the hills. No really good internet. So I had 3 WISPs, and they all have antennas on my roof, and I pull them all in together, and together I could get maybe 50 meg of download. A couple of weeks ago, they finally brought fiber to the home. I have a gig now. I don't have to worry about that feature at all. So for a lot of us, I think the internet connection was the main thing we needed to boost more of. The other is the workspace that we need. Now that we're kind of stuck here, and over the last couple of months we've been at it, we've all been reorganizing our workspace. I've been collecting a bunch of different pictures of people, those I work with and some people I just follow on the internet, of what their current workspace looks like and how they can be clean and organized. So I think from the technology, get the pieces that you need to do your job properly. Now, whether or not you have a company-owned computer or you own your own computer yourself, I shudder to think that you would work on a company computer, because my computer is like, that's mine. That's what I deal with. But if your company is providing your equipment, make sure you have all the pieces you need. Jim, is there anything you needed that you didn't have before and after this COVID crisis that you added to your home office?
Well, I'd already been working from home about 3 years, either on a partial basis or a full-time basis. So I was already pretty well set, but I've got a spare bedroom here that I converted to my home office. I've got, a desk, I've got a nice set of speakers, a nice mic for doing webinars and things like this. So it's not, to your point, it's not just bring the laptop home and sit on the couch, because I think that works temporarily, but having a dedicated workspace that's just as comfortable and equipped as what you might have in the office is really helpful.
Well, and Don made a joke when we were in the top of the hour. We were just prepping for this, and he said, "Oh, I had to come into the office so I could have enterprise class Wi-Fi." And for some people, that might be the case. You might not have enough internet, but that's a solvable situation. That means if you didn't have it before, you probably need to have it now. And for a lot of us, depending on where we live, a 3G, 4G hotspot, and depending on the price of data, might be a solution as well.
Yeah.
Next up.
As I was going to say, we're having a little bit of a hiccup with your video there. So I don't know if you want to kind of pause your camera and start it back up again, but maybe some Wi-Fi issues. Who knows?
No, it's my. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, it looks
okay.
like the video for you, Keith, just froze for a moment there.
Well, we can always turn it on and off again. It is technology, right?
Yeah, of course.
It just takes turn it on, turn it off. Is it back?
It's not back on mine, but maybe it's on for Jim.
No, not yet.
It's not the end of the world. I just thought I'd give you a quick fix. Oh, there you go.
Okay, so let's go back to here. Good. Well, thanks for telling me.
We gotta get you Mobileye, Keith.
Say that again.
We gotta get you Mobileye.
Yeah, that would. Well, all that would do is tell me, yes, it is your internet connection.
All right.
Next up, sorry, let me just switch up here. So the other side of this is this travel restriction thing has kind of changed our thinking, our way of doing things. One, just within our locality, for a while, some of us couldn't leave the house or leave your neighborhood or get further away. And the travel industry has been decimated by, actually, they haven't been decimated. That would be a 10th down. They've been way worse than decimated because, we have a hard time traveling. And it's not just the travel restrictions. Those probably will be returning. It's the industry conferences. I run a conference called Wireless LAN Professionals Conference, WLPC. Luckily, we had our big annual one in the US in mid-February, so right before this hit. So luckily, we got that all taken care of. But on this next slide, just looking at that, how does that make you feel?
A little uneasy.
Yeah, it'll be a long time before anything like that happens.
Yeah, there was a whole series of conferences that just one after another. I was supposed to be at Mobile World Congress, and that was like a week or so after WPC in February, and then conference after conference after conferences has stopped. And now we're sitting back and we look at this picture and go, yeah, I don't really know when I'm going to want to go back to that kind of a situation. We have virtual conferences, we have these kind of webinars, but that face-to-face change is going to be pretty long before we get around on the other side of this. So if this graphic makes you nostalgic, you wish you could go back, good. They might be back. If it makes you a little nervous today that, oh, wow, look how close they're sitting together. We might have to have a little discussion about that. It also has to do with face-to-face training or face-to-face sales calls. I know a lot of us have made it a part of our career is going on sales visits to customers, and there's a lot going on there that makes it easier to look them in the eye and get a feel and shake their hand. And just even saying those words right now starts to feel a little uncomfortable. So I think as we've changed in this crisis, we need to reevaluate not just the travel part, but the conferences and the sales calls, and even down to the handshaking part of how are we going to react moving forward in this kind of new world that we're on. So other things, there is some major changes in our work. The cultural changes, you know, we used to sit in open offices. Open offices had a lot of really good benefits. I once worked in a cube farm, and what I liked about it was I knew what was going on with all of my coworkers. So I mean, I could hear them talking on the phone, negotiating a contract with somebody else having difficulty with a customer, and knowing what was going on all around me made me feel like I was part of something a little bigger. The problem was I also knew about their family lives and their dog's sickness and what happened to their children, and that kind of open office feeling has its own pluses and minuses. What's it going to be as we move forward in the future? Are we going to return to this? Is it going to be either in an open office or stuck in your home office or some combination in between? Just today on this webinar, Don's in the office. Hey, Don, how many other people are with you in the office today?
In my side, there's no one else in this little back office where we are, but there's 3 others, I think, here today total.
Compared to?
There's usually about 15, I think, at a high point here at HQ. Yeah.
So you do have today's a change. It doesn't have to be. HR sent out their message. We have, you know, hand sanitizers and masks. If you want to come in, come on in. Obviously, they didn't force you to it, but it's going to feel this way as our world has changed lately. We've needed to adapt. Most of us now, if we're in the IT industry, have figured out how to do our own work in our own space. Like the lady in the picture here, she's getting her work done, she's organized, she's there. The questions are more, how are we going to get our work that we do live? Now, salespeople have to go out and meet people, but they can kind of do that virtual. How do you install an access point without being on site? So lately we've been sending out, I don't know the official term, I just call them remote hands. We do really detailed instructions on how to place an AP, where to place the AP, what the bracket is, and let the people who do the cable installation also hang the AP. And we try to do as much as we can remotely, but someone's got to physically be on site to pull these off. Doing validation surveys. I love doing validation surveys. I love knowing and documenting exactly what the Wi-Fi is. Since we can't touch, taste, feel, smell, or hear Wi-Fi, I need a tool to help me document what the Wi-Fi was there. But you have to do that on site. And I found that's fairly difficult to do remote hands, to teach someone how to do the actual data collection and, more importantly, the data analysis. So I thought what we could end this with is a little discussion and bring in the questions. I don't have the question up on my screen yet, but the questions about what other people have, and see if we can have a discussion with Jim and Don and I about what other people are having issues with around the world.
Yeah. And so Keith, one comment about, and I want to invite everybody to put their questions in the question pane, and we'll start fielding those. But one comment I have is I've certainly had cablers hang APs in the past. It makes sense. They're up there pulling the cable. Why climb a ladder twice when you can climb it once and get the job done? But
better, you don't have to even carry a ladder.
It's so important for me to come back with my own eyes and say, yeah, that AP is where it's supposed to be, and it's oriented the right way, and it's not, you know, at a 45-degree angle or 10 feet down the hall where that actually makes a difference, even
or
though
the
maybe
other room.
exactly. You know, the cablers sometimes, you know, it's easier, a lot easier maybe to put an AP 5 feet away than where it should be, and you know, don't understand the impact that has on the RF characteristics of your design. So,
Well, one of the things I do for that specifically is I use Ekahau as the software for doing modeling. I used to use Air Magnet, but you could do it in any of the softwares. I do what's called, I want to do a robust design. Now let me define what robust versus brittle. If you do a design and you take an AP, and this is in the predictive modeling, so you have the tools in, the maths in there, the walls are the correct RF loss, it's just doing math at that point. So people ask me all the time, how accurate is predictive modeling? And I ask them, how accurate is Excel? If you put in 2 plus 2, you're gonna get 4 every time, it's just math. Same thing's true with doing predictive modeling with RF. If you put the right inputs, you'll get the right outputs. So what I like to do is make it as accurate as possible and then come back and see what it takes to break my design. If I move all the APs 5 feet to the left, 5 feet ahead, 2 meters down, whatever those changes are, even moving them between rooms, if by moving an AP a couple meters in any direction, if that breaks my design, then that's a brittle design. It breaks easily. The other way to do this kind of quickly is you select walls, and let's say all your walls have a 4 dB loss. You change that 4 dB to 6 and say, if I was wrong on my measurements of my walls, hopefully you did a good job and you measure them correctly. But if I was wrong by 2 dB off, will that break my design? So I sit with the design I have and then I try to break it to see how brittle it is. If I come up with a really robust design, then I know that if an AP moves 2-3 meters in any direction, or my walls were a 6 dB instead of a 4, I still am meeting my requirements. Then with a robust design, I can easily go and teach the cable installers how to install Wi-Fi, and then I have a really simple rule. All you have to do is say, don't put it within 2 meters of anything. A light, a wall, anything, and needs to be in this room somewhere. Because I've already tested and proved that if you move an AP 2 meters in any direction, it doesn't break my design, and then I don't have to worry about the installers not putting it in the exact right place. So I found I can't trust that when installers will put them in the exact right place. So I fix it by doing a design that's more robust. Then every now and then, perhaps maybe less than 10%, less than 5% of the time, I have an AP that must be in a specific place within 1 meter accuracy. Well, at that point, I've earned the credibility of the cable pullers that I've given them the autonomy to move it wherever it's easier for them to pull cable within the room someplace. And then for that 5% of the time, I say, guys, this one must be at this exact spot. Sorry. And then I have the ability to come back afterwards, like you do, doing your validation survey, and find that for the most part, they hit where they need to be and it works good. So just an idea there. Looks like we have some questions.
We do. And one thing just a follow-up, one thing I like about that approach is that, particularly with a greenfield deployment, you get architectural diagrams to show you where the walls are and, the architecture. But after you get your network up and running, they're going to bring in furniture and sometimes, huge walls of filing cabinets and who knows what else, and hospitals, enormous refrigerators full of drugs and things like that, all that really have a big impact on the RF, but maybe you weren't able to take into account in your original design. So a little bit of headroom with a more robust design can help accommodate that.
And the reason I got to this robust design technique is I found if I make a brittle one, I save money. It's cheaper to make one just barely meeting the goals. Yay, I met the goals. And then one of these things changes. I found it's cheaper in the long run to overbuild, make a robust network before than it is to fix a problem later. Let's say I went from a brittle to a robust design and it added 15, maybe 20% more APs. If I went in with the brittle and it was wrong, then I would have to do a whole new overlay or move everything around. So it's just safer to go that way. Well, we got a couple of questions.
Yeah. Here's a good one.
Yeah, go ahead.
From Eric. He asks, and this will be a good one. Do you have any recommendations for using Wi-Fi range extenders in the home?
Was that a good enough answer there?
That's my reaction when I see them too. I just unplug them.
The answer is a Wi-Fi range extender says the instant you plug it in, you cut your throughput in half. Done. I mean, that's the simplest answer is if you want to cut your throughput in half, go ahead and add a range extender. That's just the answer. In a enterprise situation, I would never use a range extender. There's way better ways to solve the problem. But if you have a house and you can't get something into the bedroom upstairs, okay, I would not use a range extender. What I want to do is I want to extend and put Wi-Fi in a place that I doesn't have it. Why not use something as simple as a Ethernet over power? That's backwards, not power over Ethernet. This is Ethernet over power.
Yeah.
And they have extensions where you just plug one in the wall, you plug it into where you have Ethernet, you plug it in your wall, it's carried over your house wiring and it comes out the other side. And now you're not wasting the Wi-Fi airtime, doubling every single frame that has to go through the air. So those work, depending on your house construction, they could work extremely well and get 10, 15, 20 meg of throughput, which is probably enough to handle whatever the need is on the other end. So I don't really like those, but they seem to work. In one of my son's houses he just built, we ended up using a mesh system, but the mesh system isn't a range extender. It uses one frequency for the backhaul and a different frequency for the client access. So you don't have that half lost along the same way. Wire's good. I like wire. So
wire's the best.
Wire's the best if you can do that.
I'd also add too, you can use Powerline Ethernet, and there's also a very less popular technology, but one that works very well, Mocha 2.0.
I use Mocha all the time in hotels.
I'm using it right now to get Ethernet up into my my home office up here.
For those who don't know, Mocha is you're running Ethernet over coax. So even if you had a fairly old home, you probably have a coax run from a bedroom so you could hook up a TV or something back to some central location. If that central location has Ethernet and you want Ethernet in that bedroom, you attach a Mocha encoder on one end and a Mocha decoder on the other end, and then you can use the coax as your Ethernet extender, and then put a regular AP in that room if that's what you need. That's probably what you're doing right now, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Here's a good question from Colin. He says, I'm a wireless engineer covering the EMEA region. The impact is huge. No surveys, no site visits, no interaction and testing, no protocol analysis near a client. I'm having to use remote tools and guidance of untrained users and try to get something useful to analyze. Using the AP for spectrum analysis and protocol analysis. Having to adapt is a fact of life for now. So more of just a statement than a question, but definitely feeling your pain, Colin.
But Colin, you're the perfect person for their 50 for 50 from 7Signal. You now can have those, you don't need intelligent remote hands. You can just have them load the app on their machine and it hits the cloud interface and you can see all of the same things that the client can see. So yeah, what you just described is a perfect answer. It doesn't solve the validation survey. I don't know where the coverage is or where there's a coverage hole or if they moved a wall or something, but it does give you the ability to look in from the client's point of view and see what the client's Wi-Fi is showing. So yeah, perfect example for that. I kind of miss it going out and visiting because I a little better, but you're right, it is kind of a fact of life where we are now. One of the questions had to about a building not constructed yet. One thing I found, and you know, this isn't blonde hair, this is gray, I've been old, been at this for a long time. Contractors, people who build buildings, architects, they're creatures of habit. They do the same thing over and over. So if you have a building and there was an architect who designed it, they had in mind a certain construction technique and construction materials. And more than likely, in fact, I've never found a case where this isn't the truth. It could be, but I haven't found one. The architect designs with materials and he repeats himself. So I track down the architect. I asked the architect for where's another one of your buildings that you designed? And that building is already built and it has the same wall materials, and I can go measure those walls. Or if I can't get the architect to tell me that, the contractor who will be building the building, that's his business. He builds buildings, and they use the same construction materials over and over from building to building. Now, every generation or so, there's a whole change, a new set of hardware that they use. But for the most part, if you go to the contractor and say, what are you building? What was the last building you did? And you can go and measure the previous one. So even though I might not have it on this brand new floor plan, I can do a little legwork and go and measure it and get very accurate results. Again, even with accurate results, I kind of do that little bracketing. If any of you do camera work and one of the buttons on the back of a nice DSLR is a bracketing button, it takes one f-stop or two f-stops up and two f-stops down. We can do the same thing when we're designing in Wi-Fi. We can put a wall in as a 4 dB and then bracket and say, well, what if it was a 5? What if it was a 3? If it was a 5, it's a little more difficult. If it was a 3, we have more co-channel interference. I'd like to design so that not only do I have primary coverage and secondary coverage, but I also don't have co-channel interference. So you have to bracket both directions in order to make sure that works.
Cool. Another good one from Eric. Are these mesh networks in the home worth the high cost?
Compared to?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, the high cost is all compared. People look at the meshes and they go, $300, like, yeah, that's a really low cost to me. I mean, if you're in the enterprise space, a $300 AP is the bottom of the, I mean, that's like the worst. By the way, I don't know if anyone knows this, but having worked at different vendors before, and they all do the same thing. They start with a goal and they design the best access point they can. They put in the highest technology, the best chips, the best antennas, the best of everything, and they sell it as the top of the line AP. And then later they come back and sit in the meeting. They literally sit around in a meeting and say, what can we do to make this AP worse? Because we want to lower the cost. And the ratio of cost of goods sold, what the actual parts cost to MSRP, is 6 to 1, 7 to 1, depending on the vendor. And so then they say, well, how do, what can we save? Well, we can make the antenna worse. We can lower the CPU. We can make, and they go through and decide which things that are going to take out to lower the price to make the AP perform worse. And then they do it again, and they come up with the 4x4, and then the 3x3, and then the 2x2. So even if you get down to the bottom of the barrel in enterprise space, you're still more than the cost of the Soho ones that people are complaining about for mesh, which also tells you what those mesh device cost of goods is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I tend to like those mesh systems just for people that aren't like us, that just want something that's easy, they can plug in and get good coverage and good performance. Mesh seems to be something they can deploy pretty well. And
I personally, when people ask to put it in their house, I deploy mesh for them. I tell them it's not that expensive. You spend more money on, just getting your car washed every week. So if you annualize one of those costs, even to say you spent a ton for mesh and you paid $400 in a year's basis, that's, on a daily basis, it's nothing. So.
Question from Raphael. So now that more people are moving to work from home, do you see the big enterprise wireless players offering some of their products to home consumers?
Well, what I do see is enterprise players, Aruba, Cisco, Extreme, Mist, Ruckus, etc., offering an enterprise solution, including the management and control down to their employees. So if you're an employer and you have a Aruba network, they're offering you, they call them wraps, a little remote access point that you can give to your employees that they take home and give them the same environment that you have at the office. Mist offers the same kind of thing. You just put an AP in and everything you have at the office, SSIDs, validation, security, access to whatever corporate goodies are on there, they're all allowed at the home. What I don't see is Cisco selling one of their APs at Best Buy.
Yeah, yeah. Cisco's solution is the Office Extend AP, but yeah, I agree. I don't see them going directly into the consumer market anytime soon.
They don't have the channel. They don't have the margins. They don't. It just doesn't fit what they're doing. But it does fit to make what they offer more accessible to people who are now working from home. And actually, I see a lot of that going on.
One last question from Jason. How do you help remote workers or help on-site workers while you are work from home? I think we covered some of that previously, but any kind of last tips?
Well, thank you very much for offering your 50 for 50, giving people access to Mobileye. So if you need to support mobile workers, you can see from their point of view. The other is, remote into their computer and ask. Treat your employee that's working from home that's having issues as your remote hands. Have them walk around. They can take their phone around and kind of measure things. You can have them, do simple ping tests instead of just doing merely speedtest.net, which, as we all know, can be gamed. I had an ISP show me how they game theirs. Actually, I've had lots of ISPs show me that, but the one that just did my house, the installer was like, watch this, and he pushed 700 meg. And then I hit a normal one and they went, oh, it was only 250. Just because, they gamed one versus the other. So instead of doing that, have them actually do ping tests, do some more hands-on things. You can walk someone through opening up a DOS box, a command line window, and running a couple of commands and having them give you answers that you can get, even things like a DHCP time that if you suspect that, you can remotely walk them through that kind of thing. Oh, we got a big one. What do you think about the evolution of Wi-Fi 6, 6E, and 5G? I wonder if there's more marketing terms we can put in a single question. So, thank you, Colin. Wi-Fi 6 is 802.11ax, and there's a bunch of features in it, and it's pretty cool. Everyone talks about it. I'm kind of a pundit when it comes to this, kind of an old curmudgeon. I have yet to see it work consistently. We've talked for literally years now about some of the features of AX, BSS coloring. Haven't seen it work anywhere. OFDMA, haven't seen it work anywhere. I mean, rarely. It does work, and you can capture it every now and then. And when it does, it's like, yes, look, I got a spec end capture of OFDMA actually working. But seeing it work consistently, I haven't seen it yet. And so Wi-Fi 6, now, if you're going to buy something, well, of course, buy the newest chipset. Why would you buy anything earlier? Now, Wi-Fi 6E, silly Wi-Fi Alliance name for Wi-Fi in the 6 gigahertz. So there's going to be a confusion about Wi-Fi 6, which is not 6 gigahertz, and Wi-Fi 6E, which is 6 gigahertz. 6 gigahertz is huge. We pick up 1.2 gigahertz of spectrum, 59 more channels. This is going to be awesome. I'm totally infatuated and can't wait for 6E. 6E is going to allow us, when we get into the 6 gig range, to totally change our entire industry. This is huge. It's going to take a while. We're not just, the FCC just barely allowed it. We should see probably by Christmas time some Soho devices hitting that have 6 gig, but that's just the router. We don't have any clients yet. But next year, 2021, by 2022, we'll all be living in that. So stay tuned. 6E or Wi-Fi in 6 gigahertz is going to be fantastic. Now,
yeah,
5G. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Keith, and there's definitely those residential areas like apartment buildings, urban areas, dormitories, if those ever come back online, where co-channel interference is horrible because you've got this uncoordinated, everybody's got their own router and it's a mess, and they are really hungry for spectrum, and that 6 gigahertz band will be a godsend for people in that situation that are working from home.
Having talked to a lot of the SMB, the Soho manufacturers, the 6 gigahertz is going to allow us to do this. Now, I'll just describe it really quickly, but this is where the big benefit is, and it's going to go back to answer Eric's question on mesh. They're designing, and the first round will be 2.4 for data, mostly IoT and things you can't do 5 gig, a 5 gig radio for doing all of the Netflix and phones and laptops, all of your data going over wireless. And then the 6 gig will be your mesh backhaul. Because in the beginning, we're not gonna have a lot of 6 gig clients. But if I have a 6 gig mesh point and another 6 gig mesh point, I can have 3 or 4 in my house, and they're all using 6 gig for the backhaul. That means they have 5 gig totally available with no latency, no issues to hit for client devices. So the first round is going to be these high density locations, just like you mentioned, where they'll be able to get the mesh backhaul easily without messing with anything else. So that's going to be fantastic. Now, the last little question on there was 5G. 5G is such a big marketing term. It means everything. 5G incorporates Wi-Fi, incorporates Wi-Fi 6. It incorporates using LTE over unlicensed. It incorporates millimeter band. It incorporates 800, 900. It's everything. It's just a big catch-all thing that means everything can work together. So it's not 5 gig or anything else. 5 gig is the, sorry, not 5 gig, 5G is the marketing moniker for pulling all these things together. If you're using millimeter wave, it won't go through your window on the outside of your house. So we have got to figure out a way to go from millimeter outside to Wi-Fi inside. It could be that we're running LTE over unlicensed. It could be one of the methods of doing that. It could be all sorts of things. Right now, most people who are marketing it, the Verizons and T-Mobiles and AT&Ts in the US, are talking about using that protocol with their current radios because it gives them something to talk about. So don't think of 5G versus anything else. Let's talk about each of the individual technologies together. 5G is just a nice way to have an overarching term that goes over it.
Yeah, and for the work from home user, it's if fixed wireless access is your only or best option for connectivity to your home, then 5G will give you a little bit faster connectivity than what you have with LTE today.
I think the 5G term, the part that scares me most is when anyone says 5G versus whatever, they're talking about whether or not you have metered access to the internet or not. As in, are you paying per kilobyte? Are you being measured by how much data? So people talk about how much data plan they have. In the US, we have some pretty limited, unlimited plans. Depending on the country, some places, I have friends that use 4G little MiFis instead of even connecting to a hotel Wi-Fi because they get better results and they have enough data cap that doesn't bother them. Well, it looks like we're about the top of the hour. Any other final questions we would like to address?
I think we've got it all covered.
Yeah, we covered everything.
You guys did a
John, we
great
don't have
job.
to do these anymore. We got it all covered.
Right. There's no more left to be said. Gentlemen, thank you so much for the presentation today. We really loved having Keith with us today. Love getting his insight into the industry and specific topics. Jim, great job as usual. Everyone, thanks for joining us. We're going to wrap it up today. If you do want to get, I dropped the link in for the URL for the free trial for Mobileye since that came up a couple times. So visit that site and request a free trial, the 50 for 50 campaign. And if you do want a full product tour, every Friday at noon, you can go to go.7signal.com/tour, and we'll give you a full product tour and descriptions, everything you need to know about our products and services. So thanks a lot for joining us today. Have a great rest of the holiday week, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.